Welcome back, MPC users. It's Oracular Music back with another video. If you are sampling or working with samples, loops, anything like that, there are two processes you probably would want to get familiar with, and that is time stretching and pitch shifting. So in this video today, we're going to have a look at a few ways we can do that. Very important things to know if you want to incorporate new samples and loops into your current project and get them fitting well, or manipulating your sample with the pitch shift. So yeah, we're gonna have a look at a few different ways we can get that done today. Let's go. So if we're looking at time stretching, like I said, there is a couple different ways we can get that done. The first thing that you're going to want to be looking at is your main screen here and what it is you're trying to achieve. So for the purposes of this video, let's say I got a project at 95 BPM and I have 4-bar sequences. That's just what I'm working with. This will apply in a different way per project, but for the purposes of this video, we will look at it in that way. So here is a drum loop that I have here that is not in 95 BPM. So if I try to record that, this is what it's going to sound like. So we can hear right away that that was not loop tight. It was not in sync with my metronome. It did not match my BPM. So that's when we need to figure out, well, how are we going to get that to match my BPM of 95? We're going to jump into our menu and go to Sample Edit. And there we have our loop that we're working with, our sample. So the first and foremost, very important, you need to recognize what BPM the loop is, what loop it's in before you go to match it. So your BPM, it's going to tell you here, it's going to try to detect what it is. It says 85. Most times the MPC is pretty accurate with that, but you do want to double check. And my method of doing that is I will play the loop and I will use my tap tempo right here to kind of see if that's close, what it's telling me, or if I need some fine adjustments. So it'll go something like this. It tells me I'm at 85. Let's see how close that is. So then I'll jump back to my main and check my BPM that I tapped in, and it tells me 85.11, which tells me that the MPC is reading that sample at 85 pretty accurately, so I can trust it. I'm going to go back to my desired BPM of my project, which was 95, and jump back to Sample Edit. So now that I know the original BPM of the sample I'm working with is 85, that is half the battle. From there, you're going to want to go into your process, click that, and we're going to find our time stretch. Now it's telling me 4250 is my original tempo. I don't know if you can see that very clearly. Maybe we'll try that. And that's because I have it set to 8 beats in the loop. So if I go up to 16, that's going to get me to my 85. So you'll always have a divisible of the original. So 8 is going to say 4250. 4, 2125 keeps dividing, right? Now we want to find the one that is closest. So this is on the left side where you want to input the BPM that it is, that we have figured out what it is. And then on the right, we need to set it to what we want to stretch it to. Now our project is in 95. So we're going to go from 85 to 95. Do it. All right, so I've processed that loop that was in 85. It should now be at 95. So I'll go back to main and I'll test that. So let's try to record it in. And there we have it. You can hear it's it's much faster, it's sped up, and it is loop tight. That is all there is to it for time stretching in sample edit. Now that is what they call a destructive method, because we have done it in sample edit and processed it. It is processed. So what you are now working with is a new loop. It is now at the 95 as opposed to 85, and there's no way of changing that unless you have another copy of the loop, or if you undo, you could probably get it back to its original state as well. But the next process for time stretching is what they, I guess, would call a non-destructive method and is in real time, and that is warp. A lot of people do prefer warp. The reason for that is, like I said, is non-destructive, and you can kind of hear what you're working with as you change your BPM in your project. If you wanted to change it, as long as everything is warped correctly, you could go ahead and change the BPM of your entire project, and everything would change along with it just by scrolling through a different BPM. But for today, we're looking at getting it at 95. So we're going to go to Menu, Program, Edit, and we will see Warp right here. Now, we want it to be the original BPM in this section right here. So as long as we're telling the MPC what BPM this original loop is, then it should warp appropriately to whatever desired BPM we have our project set to. So let's, again, take a little listen. Here we are without warp. Once again, not loop tight because the original BPM of that loop is 85. Our project is 95. So we're going to go right ahead and flick on warp. We know it is 85 because we tapped it in with our tap tempo. We have figured it out already. So like I said, that's half the battle. Once you got that figured out, you're laughing. So we have it set to 85 and warp is on. So let's play that back again. Perfectly matching our BPM of our project at 95. Now I'll play it again and you can hear me scroll through the BPM of my project and hear how that changes in real time. Right? Now, if we wanted to do this after we've, say, chopped something up, you could absolutely do that as well. You would just need to go into the program edit onto the samples page where we were, first tab, and up here you can select all pads. So if you've had something chopped up across the pads, be sure to select all of the pads before you warp. Otherwise, you're only warping the current pad that you have selected. Worth mentioning as well is we knew the BPM here because it told us it was 85 and we tapped it, and I trusted it because it was so close that it had to be the 85. If you were just getting close but you weren't completely confident that you had it bang on, that's where stretch would come in handy. Going one way or the other will either speed it up or slow it down. So if you had to fine tune it, you could do that. Something like this. Right, so that speeds it up or slows it down depending on which way you go with the percentage. Comes in handy when, like I said, you don't know the exact BPM, but you know you're close and it's not looping completely tight. Chances are you're just going to need to stretch that maybe 1 or 2% either way. Keep playing with it and you'll find it. So let's have a look at pitch shift. We do want to be in program edit once again. We do have our semitones right here, so you may say to yourself, I'll just change the pitch there, pitch it up or down, and you could, but bear in mind with doing that you're going to slow it down or speed it up depending on which way you're going with the semitones, something like this. So yes, you are changing the pitch, but you are also changing the speed, and we don't want that. But what you can use this for, especially handy with melodies or anything of that nature, find which pitch you want it to be at, never mind the speed for now. So let's say I like the sound of that 3 semitones up, but I don't like the way that it's changing the speed. It's too fast. So that's when we're going to go back to sample edit. Okay, so now that we're in sample edit, here's what we do. We're jumping back into process, because these are all processes. You're going to want to find that stuff in the first tab of trim. And we're going to go to Pitchshift. Now, if you don't know how many semitones or how high you want to pitch it or how low you want to pitch it, that's where the process that we just did in Program Edit and found it first with the semitones, that's where that would come in handy. So we decided we liked it at 3 semitones up. So I'm going to go 3 up, and I'm going to hit do it. So now we have this. It's pitched up, but it is still at my desired speed. So if I undo that just for context, redo, higher pitch, but same speed. And before I wrap this video up, I did also want to mention inside sample edit, let's say you had it chopped up like I mentioned before in Program Edit. I'm just going to show you an example of that. So let's say we had it chopped up and we decided after the fact, oh man, I wish I could, pitch shift that or time stretch it. You could do that. You just need to make sure that here you don't have one particular slice selected. You want to make sure you have all of the slices affected. So if you have one and then you go to process, you're only affecting slice 1 and so on. So be sure to make sure if you have it chopped up already and you decide to do some processing after the fact, that you have your slices set to all. So that about wraps it up. Those are your basics for time stretching and pitch shifting. Like I said, there's many ways to get it done inside of the MPC. Those are probably 2 of the more common methods that you've seen there that most people are probably using. If that was helpful at all for you, that's great. If there's anything deeper that you want me to go into on that stuff, just let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to get that done. Again, I thank you guys for coming and watching my videos, and I do want to mention, if you are on Facebook, please stop by and see us at MPC Cook and Consult. That's where we're engaging in all things AKAI MPC, and definitely getting some conversations started there, and just a place for everybody to join and showcase what they're working on, or sharing some tips and tricks, tutorials like I'm doing myself. So I'd like to see you over there. And that's it for now. Peace.